This is your host, Shiloh Ekstrom, and you are tuning in to Grit and Grace. Real people, real conversations, and real grit. We have the original rock star with us today, Nate Ridgeway, and I am Shiloh Ekstrom, and this is Grit and Grace. All right, Nate, super excited. I love the background. Tell me where you are at right now. I know you moved since the last time I've talked to you.
I have. I was in Atlanta for years, as you know. We live north of Chattanooga now. I'm actually over in North Carolina hanging out with some friends for the week, so I am at a undisclosed backyard somewhere in the middle of North Carolina.
I love it. I love that you did this on the fly with me, because I reached out and I'm like, I need to have him next week. Like, I wanted to chat with you. You sent me something really cool, and we're going to talk about it at the end, because I really want to promote what you've got going on, because it's incredible. And I was like, get on the show. If this is what you're doing, we need to tell everyone in the world. So I'm really excited. Okay. So let's just chat a little bit. We got to know each other back in the Visalis days, MLM,
Wow.
Crazy. And I actually just had Ryan Blair on the show this week. Isn't that wild? And that's
incredible.
Crazy. Like,
it is. You know, it
circle.
feels like another lifetime. That's been a while.
A long time.
Yeah,
a long time.
You know,
Go ahead.
No, sorry. Go ahead.
No, well, I remember meeting you, and I always thought, this is the rock star. I think I referred to you as, hey, rock star. Every time I saw you, you had the awesome hair. You were always so friendly and fun, and I was like just getting started in this industry. So I was so brand new. I was a baby just trying to make it, and you were always so loving and open and always helped me when I needed it. So that's always great. Let's talk about
yeah, you know, it was an awesome season for a lot of us. And the greatest thing about anything that you do in life are the relationships that you take away with you on the journey. Because life is full of ups and downs and hills and dales. Sometimes you're on top of the mountain and you're crushing it and you're loving life. And sometimes you're down for the count, man. And you know, life's only as good as the relationships you make along the way. And to be able to pull relationships forward with you on the journey, that's the special thing.
Well, that's the key. It's all about relationships. And I think people are losing that a little bit. We're going to hop around all over today, because you and I have been friends for a while. So this is going to be a fun one. But like, I just had this conversation with a really good leader of mine. And I said, you know, the phone has been forgotten. Like, people do not pick up the phone anymore. And I think that's a really big piece. Yes, we are online. Yes, it's great to have that freedom, because we all want freedom, and we love the messenger and we love social media. But I'm telling you what, there's a big piece of communication that got lost when people just stopped picking up the phone. Like, there is nothing better. If you called me, I would answer. Like, I'd be like, whoa, Nate's calling me. I'm going to answer the phone. I think it's really going away quickly. And I think it's a big piece of missing the relationships. You can only build so much having a chat and a text, but you can't judge tone. You can't judge intent. No. And things can get lost in translation. So I think that's really important. And you are a singer-songwriter, but you're also into ministry. I mean, you are like this multi-dimensional person. You, your wife, your family are just incredible to me. And so let's talk about communication. And what have you seen since we got to know each other? Gosh, I want to say 10, 12 years ago. So much has shifted since we got to know each other. What are you noticing, you know, just in not just business, but being a singer and songwriter too, and even in the ministry, how things have shifted?
Well, you nailed it. It's all about communication. My dad's a great communicator. He's an amazing man. I've got wonderful parents. He was a pastor, I want to say somewhere between 45 and 50 years. And I had all of my lifetime to sit back and to watch him and to observe and to learn. And there was something that I noticed that was unique about my dad, even from other people that I knew that were in ministry. You know, it doesn't matter what life lane we're talking about, Shiloh. It doesn't matter if we're talking about ministry, if we're talking about network marketing, if you're talking about business in the traditional sense, if you're talking about here trying to make it in the real world of music, which is very difficult. Nobody likes somebody that's just in it for themselves. And people can tell. You can't fake it, man. People know if you give a flip about them or not. And, there's that old quote, and I'm probably going to botch it, but it says something to the effect of people don't remember much of what you said, but they'll always remember how you made them feel. And my dad made people feel amazing. And so I just spent my life trying to figure out, how to make people feel amazing, even when there's nothing in it for me. Just to go out into the world and to sow great seed and to love on folks and to try to make an impact and a difference, even if there's nothing coming back to you. And what's interesting is somehow, some way, man, it ends up coming back to you. And I think even more so when we don't expect it. And so with regard to communication, I think you're right. It's a lost art. Everybody hides behind their thumbs these days. We're probably even guilty of it sometimes without meaning to be, just because the whole globe has gone technical. And now I've been texting for 25 years, man. I've been texting longer than these Gen Z mutts have been alive. God love them. My kids, like sometimes they would say, Daddy, I'll challenge you to a texting war. I'm like, I got you, man. I've been doing this since before you were born. But it's easy to get trapped in that. And there's nothing like reaching out person to person and getting involved in somebody's space and sharing life for a minute.
Absolutely. Communication is everything. And something I vowed this year was to be a better communicator. Obviously, I'm doing a podcast. There's a lot of things that require communication, proper communication skills. But I do feel that if you tie communication with emotional intelligence, those are the two keys to everything. We see a lot of reactions. It's very easy to get on social media and go, oh my gosh, I hate this, or crazy stuff happening. The world is in turmoil at all times. I mean, if you look for it, you'll find it. I mean, that's it. If you look for good, you'll find good. If you look for bad, you're going to find bad. But it is thrown in our face, and it's how we react to things. And so I'm interested to hear, you did move, you have some shifts. You were in the business world for a season, the MLM business. And you stayed in there, you're still in there. But what changed for you and your family where you're kind of shifting more into kind of the next phase? What's happening in that world right now?
That's a great question. Network marketing is interesting because I think that it attracts a lot of different types of people. One type of people that it attracts en masse are folks who are unhappy with their life situation, disgusted of being broke, whether it's financially broke or time broke. And so a lot of times the first leg of our journey is just like getting to good, right? Like getting to ground zero. So for us, it was getting completely debt free, including mortgage, being able to live a residual income lifestyle. And then once you get to ground zero and the brain starts to pop off thinking about like, now what's possible for me? Well, then we become as afraid and as unique as the individuals that we are, and we go after different things. I've seen people get completely debt free because of network marketing and get set free, and they literally want to go build orphanages for orphans around the world. They're not interested in continuing to make millions of dollars. Some people love to go into coaching and passing on the craft of what they've learned. Others of us decide to chase the things that we felt like were the real us before we got trapped in the rat race of the real world. So going back for me, I was always a musician. I mean, I don't remember when I was 2 years old, my mom and dad bought me one of those like Linus pianos from Charlie Brown and stuck my little chubby legs under it and put my fingers banging on the keyboard, and a musician was born. That's been in my heart and soul for forever. My wife comes from a ministry family as well. And so making a big God impact in the world is a big deal for us. She's got an awesome ministry going called Read the Bible with Me. And she's got, I think, 10 to 11,000 organic members in our Facebook group. We've not done any paid ads, paid boosts, none of that stuff. She's selling thousands of copies of her books without any kind of a publisher or a backer. We've done it on our own. And I think that she's been successful just because she's so, like you were talking about, she's genuine, she's real, she has real communications with people. They know she wants to make a difference. I hope that people will get behind what I'm doing as a musician now because they see the realness of my heart and they see that I'm wanting to bring what's inside of me to the rest of the world. And that's what I've seen you do. I've seen you walk that path, you have far surpassed what I did in the season of time when we were in Vice House. And I love it. It's like so stimulating and exciting to watch you become the very free, competent, capable, strong, passionate woman in the world that you are now. And it's awesome. And when you start to live in your authentic self, people see it. and they're drawn to it. They're attracted to it. And it doesn't matter if you want to be a rock star or take care of homeless kids or go dig up dinosaur bones in the Amazon region, like whatever your thing is, you know, like be the realest you that you can possibly be, and people will get behind it. That's what I believe.
Absolutely. You brought up 2 points. One, you were talking a lot about, you know, you get this money, or you get to this place where you get to live your dreams. I think a lot of people get stuck right before that. They're just in the wheel. And they're in the wheel, and it's like, I got to make more money, and I got to make more money. And I did this for a while. I was chasing and chasing. I'm like, well, it's not good enough. I wasn't smelling the roses, and I wasn't like enjoying my success. And even if it's a small thing, I had not enjoyed the first 5 years to 7 years of my business life because I was just caught up. I'm like, it's never enough. And I was always in this competitive mode, and it had to be more, and it had to be more. And then I finally kind of took a step back, and I'm like, what am I doing this for? I mean, I'm sacrificing time with my kids. I'm exhausted. I'm burnt out. I never feel satisfied. Everything was based on business being up or down. So it was determining that. And when I finally said no more, I kind of said stop. I changed the way I was doing things. I started to take time for myself, and I started to look at things I wanted to do. I'm like, why was I doing this in the first place? It's not just to make money. I love when people say that, well, I want to make money. No. That's not why. Why do you want to make money? Do you want to, like you said, do you want to go help orphans? Do you want to go dig wells? Do you want to be a musician? Do you want to do that? Do you want to do a podcast? Do you want to be an author? Do you want to save the world? Whatever it is, there is a reason. Do you want to set your family up and create a trust or whatever it is? We make money to enjoy freedom as well. You have to take those times. But how you do that, and this is the big piece that was missing for me. For the first 5 to 7 years, I wasn't living in my truth, and I wasn't being my authentic self. I didn't know how to be, because how I came into the business was back against the wall, desperate, doing anything I could to get successful with integrity, but like what you think you're supposed to do. So you get into a business world and you think, well, I'm supposed to look like that, or I'm supposed to talk like that. And as we evolve and as we get older and mature, right, that emotional intelligence, I started to realize I'm burning out because I'm not being true to me. Half the people that work with me don't know the real me. And the ones that actually do love me, I'm like, so why am I not being me all the time? I think it's a challenge that happens in every business. Being yourself, I always say, be a rebel, be yourself. It's legit what it is. Like, you look on Facebook, Instagram, any social media, you don't know what the real person is. That's really challenging. That's a filter. That's the highlight reel. Okay. So I had to be more vulnerable, and I had to just let go of what I thought I needed to do and just be me, with no apologies. And that's scary. It really is, because there's so much judgment out there. We put ourselves on these platforms. And I don't think a lot of people, if somebody who isn't in a business or owns their own business, it's a little bit different to put yourself out there. If you're trying to start a new thing, like you're trying to start a new thing right now. You've started businesses. Some fail. I've failed many times, but you have to be willing to fail in front of everybody. And I think people really need to look at that more and go, wow, I need to support these small business owners. I need to support, no matter what they're doing. If somebody's going out on a limb and saying, I did this, or I'm going to start this, support them, give them a love, give them a like. Don't be so judgmental. I think people, they don't do what they want to do because they're so darn afraid to do it. They're so afraid what people think. And that's
they're afraid of what people think. They're afraid of what you just said, failure. People don't realize that failure is a part of the journey to success. You don't get to success without failing a lot of times. You don't fail once or twice. You fail a lot of times, and you fail at least once or twice miserably. I love to hear Dave Ramsey. Dave Ramsey, who's like the guru of all things financial. He says, I made it and I lost it, and I made it and I lost it again. And then I made it a third time, meaning millions of dollars. And I finally learned how to keep it, and very vulnerable about his failures. And I think you're right. When we can learn to love the life journey and stop loving money, right? That's the thing. When we can learn to love the stuff that God put in us that he wants us to bring out to the world, then regardless of whether you're failing or not, you're still having a good time. I mean, we might have started off to make a clay pot on the wheel. Maybe it turns out to be a mud pie, but then we can just have a mud pie fight, right? I mean, just have fun in the mess, because a mess is not the end. A mess is just the next step in the process of getting good.
Oh yeah, there's been several times, and Chelsea's on here, and I always laugh because I've had messages with her like, "Oh my gosh, my life is crazy right now," and it's like, we'll laugh about this one day. We'll laugh. I've had a couple moments where I'm like, and I say this all the time, so I'm gonna say it, it's a shit show. Like sometimes I'm like, life's like that. But it's so true. But you have to embrace that. I like saying, be messy when you're doing things. Be messy, fail forward. I think that's really important, and I think. Some of my biggest successes came right after my biggest falls. And I say fall because sometimes we don't just make a mistake, we completely trip and fall on our face. And that God does that to us. God puts that in front of us on purpose. Everything, he has a plan for everything. And I really, in the last year and a half, I have really gotten closer spiritually. And I've always been a Christian. I've always been a woman of faith, but I wasn't practicing it. I'm like, yes, I believe in God. That was me. And I was, Catholic background and got confirmed and all the things, but I wasn't practicing it. I wasn't having the conversations. And when I started to really let go, there's this piece that happens with this, and it takes a while. But when you really just give it to God and let go, and you're like, Jesus, take the wheel. Now what? and you're talking and you're like, okay, we're going to get through it. But there's a piece that happens when you truly let go. And that happened for me about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago. And it's just been beautiful because everything started to happen. What was incredible is the minute I let go, all the things started to happen. It's wild.
Yeah. And, and to tie all that in back to where you started a while ago with communication, what happens is we begin to communicate our authentic self, right? We begin to communicate it to the world and social media. We begin to communicate it to our inner circle, those private conversations. The new relationships they're building with new people that we meet, they get the better part of us than they would have gotten before. It just becomes like a natural outflow. Communication goes from maybe a 5 or a 6 to an 8, 9, or a 10 when we start to live in our authentic self.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's talk about this next stage. You've had many successes in your life. You and your wife are doing incredible things. Always a musician, but what's happening now? What just shifted where you're like, I want to go to this next level? Where are you at?
Yeah, I lived in Atlanta for like 20 years. Back around 2000, I had an independent record label there and a recording studio in Atlanta. And I was always doing other people's projects. I was either producing, engineering, arranging vocals, playing for these other artists. And I even did like a project with some singers from my church down there at that time, all songs that either I wrote or my wife wrote. And I just never got around to doing the solo thing, I've never not done music, but I've just never done the solo project. And it was kind of pre-quarantine. Quarantine had not set in yet. And I was doing a little traveling, and one trip, I picked up my 1976 Guild acoustic. I stuck it in the Sequoia with me. I hit the road, and I'm laying, in a strange bed one night about 2:00 in the morning, and bam, here comes a song. And I'm playing with it, and I'm like, you know what? That's not bad. Like, that's pretty good. I like it. Maybe somebody else would like it. So I play it for my son, and my son's like, yeah, Dad, that's a killer tune. And so I started playing it for a few people, and then I started writing some more. Then quarantine hit. I had a lot of time on my hands, and the songwriting floodgate just opened up. And, around the music business and with other friends that I've had in the industry that are musicians that write songs or lyrics, they will tell you, like, you just never know when you're going to get that, like, geyser of the soul. Being a consistent writer is not an easy thing to do. And when you hit a season where it just kind of volcanic, eruption takes place inside of you, you count yourself blessed because you don't get many of those. A lot of the songs that we hear that pop out on the radio make pretty good songs, but they're more of a craft. You have like these songwriting teams that get together and craft songs. That's a discipline, and not one that I sell short. That's a significant discipline. But then there's also this kind of singer-songwriter thing where someone's wanting to be much more of an artist in the way that they portray their songs. And that's the stuff that comes from in here. So I got lucky, man. I give God all the praise. But I got lucky, man. I had that like just geyser of the soul that went off. And talking again about communication, I've only ever done, in terms of like mass performance, I've done mostly like church music. I've been doing like the rock and roll praise and worship thing since before it was cool. Like before the smoke machines, before the lights, when everybody was telling me that I was going to hell for, trying to push the gamut on stage in church. I've been doing it for I had 25 years, man. But this is allowing me to communicate a lot of other stuff that I wasn't sure I was allowed to, like just singing songs about love and life. We've all experienced the anticipation of love, the joy of love, losing love and the heartbreak that comes with it. Those are real human experiences and emotions and things that I've been through. Everybody's been through them. And so I've been able to kind of just communicate another side of my heart, I guess, in this process.
Love that. I love that. And I love that you were doing it before it was cool. Because it did. There was such a huge shift. Because I remember church was like straight up the hymns, you sing the way you sing it. And you go into, we had that transition where those churches or those ministries that are playing the music, that's not, and I was like, but I kind of like it, I like it. It brings some fun. I think it's fun to kind of watch the older generation grab onto that stuff, and they have. And now, you go in and everywhere's got just beautiful music. It doesn't matter if it's rock and roll or whatever it is. And it's great. Music is life. Think about how much we all have soundtracks, right? Like even Amazon creates my soundtrack for me. And my soundtrack to life is like 80s rock. Okay, it's always going to be 80s rock. Like I'm like, we're going to rock out to 80s all the time. My kids even love the 80s because it just was a great time. It was a great time in music. It was fun. It was different. And it'll always be some of the best rock and roll. But I love all different kinds of music. And so I think it's great. But when I think of like your soundtrack to life, like think about times when you have to do something big or even a speech. There's always a song in your head that you have, it, like you can hear the sounds in your head. And we are driven by this music we create all the time. There's just special people like you who know how to write it out and play it. And I think that's really incredible. Like I am not a musician. I'm not a singer. And I always laugh. My brother got that talent. That is not my talent. My talent is things like this. And so I embrace that he has those talents. But during quarantine, you brought this up, and I bring it up to a lot of guests because this was a moment. This was an opportunity. And you saw people totally transform during quarantine in a good way. You saw some people not so good. Some people didn't handle it well. It's given. It was a major shift in the world. But I always say it was an opportunity to do what you wanted to do. You could have learned a language. You could have wrote a song. The things that you didn't have time to do, you were given all the time. And get your hobbies, take the time. And there was a lot of people, especially in our circles, who really did do that. I saw people doing incredible things, creating new businesses out of nothing, finding a need and filling it. I think that's extremely important. That's what an entrepreneur is. You find the need, you fill it. And it was fun to also watch, as sad as it was. And there was so much heartbreak, and we know that. But when I see people shining through something like that, it's just incredible. It just is incredible. So for me, I learned a language. I learned French. I'm not good at it, but at least I started. Yeah. I have 367 days straight of French.
Wow.
I can't speak it very well, but I can understand it, which is huge because when I see it, I'm like, I understand what that means. And if I hear it, I can understand a lot. Like I have a lot to learn. And now this summer is the summer of piano. I've always been passionate and love the piano. Like if I could play an instrument, I've always wanted to do it. I'm like, why haven't I done this? So me and my daughter, who already had some lessons, are taking piano on Wednesdays. And that's my next challenge to learn an instrument because for gosh sakes, I'm 40 years old. And I'm going to learn this because I love piano and it's just so cool. So you started writing songs during quarantine. What about family stuff? What was your experience as a family, because obviously I love your family, how did you transition? How did you handle, what were your things that kind of got you through that?
Well, I'll be honest with you. We kind of had a jump start on quarantine. We've been a homeschooling family for 12 years. Okay. And so we're like in quarantine every day anyway for the last dozen years or so. In fact, I asked you about this podcast. I was like, hey, is this going to be audio or video? And you said video. I was like, okay, I guess I'll do something with my hair. Because most days of the week, like I'm sitting around in my pajamas or my robe, hair not done. I might get a shower before coming to the dinner table. And I'm like sipping a cup of coffee and, either making a few phone calls or I've got my guitar out or I'm sitting at my piano. So our family was very used to already being together a lot. What was interesting for us was watching the rest of the world have to get sucked into our vortex and to seeing how they responded and how some of them did not handle it well at all, like you said, and how others really championed that mountain peak, that was set before them and really, went out and took advantage of it to do some really cool stuff, And I think the biggest downside for us was like all the stuff that we don't, because we always have a ton of time on our hands and we could always go do what we wanted to do when we wanted to do it. Now, suddenly all the stuff we wanted to do was closed down and we're like, well, bummer. So we did have to, spend a little more time getting creative. I saw my son really develop next level in his musical ability. He got very detailed with like his own regimen of each day. I'm going to spend this much time on the guitar, this much time on the piano. I'm going to read and study this much, per day. My daughter, she took advantage of that little bit of extra time to really come into her opera voice. One of the things that I do is direct a homeschool theater program in Chattanooga that we do exclusively Gilbert and Sullivan opera. And we take these kids who can sing a little bit, act a little bit, and just see them blossom into stars. And so my daughter probably sang 3 to 4 hours a day. There were a few times, Shiloh, where I was like, if I have to hear opera one more time, I'm going to lose my mind. But I never said a word because she was growing and she was getting good and she was, investing the time. And that's what you're talking about. Like you said these words, you said we were all given an opportunity. Mm-hmm. And dude, we were like, everybody was given an opportunity to do something. You went out and did some tremendous things. And I saw some other people do that too. I saw some interesting entrepreneurial things take place. I've got a client that I've coached for years out in Hawaii, and she's an amazing network marketer. We had not worked together really in that capacity, but she was like, man, Hawaii needs help. I want to find a way to create maybe some jobs because a lot of people are getting laid off from their jobs. What is something that we could do to create jobs in a time where there are no jobs? And she was like, well, with COVID going around, these people need to have cleaner environments. And she came up with this like whole cleaning system, like go in and disinfect like restaurants and hotels and businesses and things like that. Created herself a little side income, created some jobs for others, and provided a great service for her people. Isn't that cool? So I love to see people who take what other people see as such like a horrible season of life and just turn it into something spectacular.
Well, you can be a victim all day long. I mean, it's easy. We can be victims. I mean, we all have pity parties. Let's be real. I have them too. We're human beings. We're supposed to go through the motions, right? But there is a time where you pick yourself up and say, okay, well, I could either feel like crap every day. I could do something about it. Like, I'm not going to sit in it. And I think that's why there's entrepreneurs, that's why that is a world, because there are people who are like, I'm done. I'm not going to accept what's in front of me. I'm going to change it. I'm going to create, I'm going to grow past it. And I'm going to break the ceiling. I'm going to break the glass ceiling. And I think it's so much fun. And it's really fun to watch. I love that your daughter did that. It's so funny. It's so cute when you're like, there's days where I was ready. It's like, I had to walk out of the house a couple times with the kids. It's like, yeah, I'm walking out. And not because they were doing anything wrong, but we also have a family where we were all home a lot together. We didn't homeschool. Oh, no. But when the shift happened, it wasn't terrible. My kids were not so young that they couldn't handle homeschooling, but my son had challenges. So when that first happened, I was concerned of him not making it through the grade at the end of last year. And it was really tough for me because I had to work. Business blew up because we're an online business and we were a non-toxic business of cleaning products. So then all of a sudden, I'm like, I'm really busy. Like I was busy, but went to overdrive. And he's like, Mom, can you help me with this? Mom, what does this mean? And then I'm trying to do math and I'm like, honey, I don't know what math this is. And I'm like, you're so you know what I did? I got creative and I gave his sister money. I said, if you help your brother and take your time for this week just to set him up on his computer and to show him where these things are, I will give you some money. And she ended up doing and said, Mom, I don't need money. But I'm like, thank you, because she knew how to navigate the computer. I use a Mac. They were using the Microsoft system. I'm like, I can't do this. I'm like, I'm so busy. So it was really interesting. And there was a couple of days where I had to walk out of the house and take a walk. Like, I'm like, I'm gonna walk down the driveway like 35 times. We have a really long driveway. And I'm like, I'm going down and back and down and back. And I'm like, it's okay. It's okay. We've got a beautiful place. But yeah, I mean, we all had to take some time, but it was actually beautiful to see our kids. It was beautiful to see the kids transition through one of the craziest moments in the world that not one person could say they've ever been through. I told them that. I said, do you realize you just went through something that no one in the world has ever been through? Look at how well you did. It's pretty incredible to watch them. It's pretty incredible to watch how kids handled it. Really.
Yeah, and it makes you proud as a parent, doesn't it? It makes you proud.
It does. And they have challenges. My son has challenges. You know, he doesn't like to do schoolwork. So being at home in front of a video game when he wants to play a video, I'm like, no. You know, that was challenging for him. And he really had to get pulled into finishing. But you know what, we made it through, and now they're going to school and they're like, why do we have to go to school? I'm like, no. You're going back to school. Like, you're getting into school because Mom can't handle it. Mom's done. But it's so incredible. Okay, so as we wrap up, Nate, let's talk about this project. You had sent me information and I want everybody to know about it. So what are your plans? You are, you know, getting your album out there. You're getting ready. So let's talk about that, the preparation. Like, tell me what the preparation is like to do the project you're doing. Explain it to our listeners and our viewers. What is this next step in music songwriting and what you're doing? And then how can we help?
Yeah, I'll kind of give it a little bit of narrative form, if that's cool, and share a little bit of the story. I think that might be more fun for everybody. You know, it's one thing to sit down with your guitar and bang out a cool melody and some chords. And then there's like the whole production process of like bringing it to life. And so sometimes I'll be sitting around and I'm just doing the ooh and the ahs and like thinking about the background vocals that need to go on the record and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And when I had the studio in Atlanta years ago, one of my partners then, I had always said, you know, because he was like, dude, why don't you do a solo record? I was like, one of these days I'll get around to it. And I said, you know what, if I ever do, you're going to produce my record. Well, he ended up moving to Raleigh. Years later, we ended up moving to Tennessee, Chattanooga area. He was working at a multi-million-dollar recording studio in Raleigh when he went out there. And then a long time. But I called him up when I started getting some songs and I said, hey, dude, I think I'm just going to put it out to the world that I'm going to do an album and kind of force my hand, which is another thing that champions do, right? Like, we kind of put our butt in a sling a little bit. We like go announce we're going to do something before we're ready to do something.
Yeah.
And I knew if I went public in the world, I'd be like, okay, now I got to do it. So I said, I'm going to do a record and I want you to produce the record. He got excited about it. Quarantine set in. We decided to meet in the middle of North Carolina, about halfway between us. I got a hotel room. We went through the Taco Bell drive-through because we couldn't go inside. We're eating like burritos in the car. And I said, well, come back to the room. You sit on the chair. I'll sit on the edge of the bed and I'll play through some songs and you tell me if we've got a record or not. And so we're sitting there and I'm singing through the stuff. And he's like, at one point he's like, okay, dude, we've definitely got a record. He's like, I don't need to hear anything else. We've got it. I was like, well, I got piano songs. I just don't have a piano in the hotel. So I had to go back home and bring those out on my iPhone. And I went over to Raleigh in November and we did what we call scratch tracks, which is where we're just getting down like the basic tempo, basic lyric, basic chords, nothing fancy at all. And we were kind of starting to talk about the band that we were going to put together to play on this record. And I had this crazy idea. I said, well, look, man, you know all these guys from Muscle Shoals, Alabama. And for those of you that don't know anything about Muscle Shoals, Google it up and do your research. That became just a hot spot for like soul music and R&B, that sort of thing, in the late 50s and 60s, and later on into rock and roll, and the Southern rock sound was birthed out of there. They've had Aretha Franklin, Etta James, Clarence Carter, Wilson Pickett, later on the Allman Brothers, Simon and Garfunkel, Bob Seger's Silver Bullet Band, all that stuff. And I said, dude, why don't we, instead of doing it at your place and bringing cats from down there up here, let's just go down there and just move in for a while, and let's do the record, down there. And I didn't want him to be offended, because I didn't want him to think that I didn't want to use his place, because his place is amazing. And he said, man, that's an amazing idea. He said, I'd love it. I want to go down there. We get to hang out, get some of the A-listers that are on the call list down there. And so we set it up to go down and interview some different sole proprietors of the studios that are there, made our rounds for a few days and listened to some projects that were actually being recorded. I actually had an old common friend of ours just try to call me. I'll have to call him back.
Fun.
Yeah, that was Del Peak.
Oh, funny.
Yeah. So I'll call him back in a minute, say hello. But so yeah, we went down and interviewed some studios and kind of found like where we're going to land in the process. For people who like love music and want to kind of know, you'll go in and you'll lay down basic rhythm tracks, bass, drums, guitar, things like that. Then you do what we call overdubs, where you come in and throw in guitar solos. If somebody's going to play a lap steel or some electric piano, synth sounds, things like that. Go in and cut the vocal, get the good vocal down, background vocals. Then it goes through the mix process. The mix process is where, if you ever listen to a record and you hear like a guitar over on that side and maybe a little triangle over on that side, that sort of thing, the placement, makes it sound good, kind of chisels on the sound of the song. And then after that, they take it to what's called a mastering facility. They master the record and just put that final spank on it, man, so that it sounds awesome on radio. So it's a long process. It takes a lot of time, takes a lot of money, and especially if you do it right. If you do it right and with attention to detail, then it takes a lot of time and a lot of money. And I said going into this thing, I'm not going to waste my time to do something kind of half-cocked. I wanted to do something that I could really be proud of, because I'm not just a singer-songwriter. I am an entrepreneur, and I like things to be done well, and I want it to be something I can be proud of. And I want it to be something that when people listen to it, they find some songs that they can connect to and really enjoy. So it's going to be a great record. I think everybody's going to love it.
I think that's awesome. And thank you for explaining that, because I don't think a lot of people understand what the entire process is. We had Mindy Davy on. She's an up and coming pop star. And she, talked about the other side of the music industry a little bit, kind of the PR side and, getting connected to people and having really good people with you and producers and things like that. And as a woman in the industry, we kind of went over that because that can be really challenging, especially in the pop side. In the pop side, that can get really, really different. That, it's a interesting industry. I'll say that. And, you come in with the technical side, like what you just explained. These people, artists, it's incredible what musicians do, what songwriters do. And we went to Nashville, and somebody was telling me about the songwriters and how they write songs down there. And I couldn't believe how crazy it was in Nashville. And what they do is they just sit and they're writing and they just pump it out, and they're so talented. And I'm thinking, wow, we just listen to the song and think, that's a good song or a bad song. It's like, even if it's a bad song, look at how much work went into it. Like a song you don't like, there's no such thing as a bad song, I guess, because somebody likes it, right? And it's like, wow. So it's just so much work. It's incredible to listen to you as an artist, as a songwriter, somebody who's producing, who's doing all the things to get this going. And so how can we support you and fund you? Because there are some cool things you're doing, and let's let the audience know how we can at least cheer you on if they want to cheer you on and follow you.
Well, I appreciate that so much. Yeah, these are the days of the independent musician. It's interesting. The record labels are sort of losing reign a little bit on the industry, but at the same time, that doesn't mean that it's easier for independent artists. I have a friend of mine that got 6 million listens on Spotify, and his check was $125 for 6 million listens. Ooh. So it's really difficult, to kind of break through and make it happen. And so crowdfunding has become a big, big thing, kind of like crowdsourcing songwriting they do now, right? They get together, they crowdsource the songwriting process. And so crowdfunding crowdfunding has become a big thing. I'm doing a Kickstarter campaign. Our entry level amount that we're trying to raise is a minimum of $25,000. That campaign actually just went live about an hour before your show. And I was really hoping that it would get approved in time, because the initial goal was to start it on June the 1st. And then whenever you had so graciously invited me to come on the show, which I'm super pumped about. Thank you so much. I was like, okay, let's see if we can get this thing approved and pushed through. And it literally went live about an hour, maybe even 30 minutes actually before the show. And so I just went to GoDaddy and redirected nateridgeway.com straight to the Kickstarter so that it's easy for everybody to find. They can go to nateridgeway.com and participate in the Kickstarter there. There's a lot of different tiers where they can back me with different things that they'll receive for their support.
I think that's awesome. And we're definitely going to support you. And we are excited. And our guests would love to support you, even if it's going and liking and following. That's important too, y'all.
Absolutely.
Giving a love, giving a like. We, as business people, entrepreneurs, we need the support on social media. We need the support. And sometimes just a friendly message is support. Like, don't forget that. It doesn't always mean money. But yes, we want to help you in that way too. But guys, this is so incredible. And Nate, thank you so much for coming on. You've been my friend for, oh my gosh, we're coming up on like 12 years. Yeah. And I think it's great. And your family and your wife, beautiful wife. And say hi to Dale Peak for me, because that's hilarious. I haven't talked to that man for a long time either. But you know what? It's just crazy how full circle. You know, I when Ryan came on, and you know, he is really transformed since you've probably seen him too. And you know, everyone's doing such different things, and to watch people grow and evolve together is really fun too. So thank you for hopping on, everyone. This has been another incredible episode with my rock star for the last 12 years, Ridgeway. And this has been a great episode of Grit and Grace, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thank you for listening to and watching Grit and Grace. This episode will be continued next week. Subscribe to us on Spotify or Apple iTunes to listen, and download the Lux TV app to watch anytime, anywhere.
Now, glutathione is a big word, but it's the body's own master antioxidant. So it's a scavenger for free radicals, for bacteria, and what's relevant now, viruses. This is new to the marketplace. There's no other product on the market that has the ingredient NACET.
And basically NACET increases the production of that glutathione that is in our body already to strengthen and enhance our immune system and keep it strong. Elevated sense of well-being. Supports muscle strength and endurance. Cognitive function. Powerful liver support. Energy. Helps blood sugar regulation. Superior bioavailability of key ingredients.
One of your best defenses against COVID is a strong immune system. Taking GSH Plus as a daily supplement does all that. And now we have the product out on the market.